5, classified as a first felony offender, offense aggravated incest. Sentencing date, December 5th, 2007, amended on February 4th, 2009. Sentenced to a total of 20 years. Parole date, December 21st, 2013. Good time, not eligible. Full term, April 24th, 2027. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Ms. Carafella. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm fine. My name is Bonnie Jackson. Your case has been assigned to me. So I'll start the questioning. How old are you, Ms. Carafella?
36.
And how much of your 20-year sentence have you served?
Almost 15.
When will it be 15?
I believe in October.
The victim in this case was your niece, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was she at the time of this offense?
8 years old.
And what possessed you to sexually assault your 8-year-old niece?
Well, ma'am, from the beginning, I went to trial and I fought it, trying to prove my innocence. And unfortunately, at the end, I was proven guilty by the state. But
So you deny that you forced her to perform oral sex on you?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was 8 years old at the time of the alleged offense?
Yes, ma'am.
What reason would she have to fabricate something like that?
Before I was arrested, it was explained to me that she was accusing a cousin of hers. Then my sister and I, which is her mother, had an altercation. And probably 3 weeks later, when I came in from work, I was told by my aunt that I was the one now being investigated and accused of that, when previously she had said it was a cousin of hers.
And you went to trial and evidence was presented, a jury heard that evidence and they found you guilty, is that correct?
I had a bench trial with a judge and the witnesses testified against me, and yes, ma'am, I was found guilty.
Okay. Have you gone through any sex offender treatment?
Yes, ma'am, I took the whole program. There was 4 phases as a student, and the 5th phase was as a facilitator.
And when did you do that?
I was at Rayburn Correctional Center.
How long ago was that?
I've been here 5 years, so that was probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
Have you taken victim awareness?
I was in that when they had a program here for Oasis. And then the write-up that occurred after that had sent me to the blocks, and the program hasn't been back due to the pandemic.
And was that write-up in 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
It was a contraband?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the contraband?
There was, when I got the job in the education building where I was working, I inherited from the clerk a USB hard drive box. And it had movies on it, I'm not gonna lie to you. And from time to time, other guys in the building would want to use the box. And when I would get it back, it would have more movies on it. I take responsibility because I had the box in my possession. That was a dumb decision on my part. I don't blame anybody but me because it cost me a lot.
So why did you make that decision?
It was a dumb lapse in judgment.
No, it's dumb. But why? What were you thinking? You knew?
Obviously, I wasn't.
Well, let's talk about, have you had a history of substance abuse problems?
No, ma'am.
You never used drugs or alcohol?
No, ma'am.
What kind of work were you doing when this crime occurred?
I was a manager at Walmart, assistant manager at Walmart.
What kind of work are you doing at the prison right now?
I am a recreation orderly. We maintain cleaning the gym, helping organize sports, working with the staff for games and leagues and things of that nature.
Okay, and what other jobs have you had?
I'm also a tier walker, helping watch the mental health suicide watch in the cell block.
You got some certifications from Louisiana Technical College. So what kind of certifications do you have?
It was a print ed certification for graphic design and communications. It teaches you how to design different things such as websites, logos, business cards, work a printing press.
And you also are enrolled or have been enrolled at Ashland University.
Yes, ma'am. I just got my degree around a little over a month ago.
In what?
It's a general studies degree.
And I see you've done 100 hours of pre-release.
Yes, ma'am.
And you took Cage Your Age.
Yes, ma'am.
Why'd you take Malachi Dance? You have children?
Yes, ma'am. I had a daughter. She's died since I've been in prison, but I have 3 stepsons with my wife. And I want to learn as much as I can about being a better father because that's something I didn't have. And that's something I want to be for them. I want to learn from what I didn't have to be able to be that for them.
Were you married to your wife when this happened, or is this someone you met while you've been incarcerated?
We were together, but we didn't get married until after my incarceration because I was convicted before the wedding.
Okay, but you all did get married?
Yes, ma'am. We got married in 2009.
Warden, what can you tell us about Ms. Carafella?
Can you?
As he stated, Ms. Jackson, he has been very involved in programs over the years. As stated, he's had just 3 disciplinary. The last was the one he explained. Beyond that, I don't have anything additional. He's been no significant problems or issues for us while he's been here.
Do you see in this record proof of completion of his sex offender treatment?
You have,
You should have all 5 certificates in there. It's called behavioral enhancement.
tons of certificates. And where did you take it?
Rayburn Collection. Should be in that area right there. Is that all mental health certificates?
What is this for?
That was just the job we had. She gave us appreciation for it. Should be 5 certificates in there. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Is he credit for these classes?
Yeah, that's what, I don't get good time today. That's what I can do.
Jackson, I'm looking, he has a pretty thick record with a lot of certificates, but I'm still looking.
Right, I was searching for it too.
What class is it that y'all are searching for?
Sex offender, risk management 1 through 4.
There should be 5 certificates. No, I did not turn these in. I forget to put that in there. We called it a different name there. It wasn't called risk management. It was called behavioral enhancement treatment group, BETG.
So there is a certificate of completion from Rayburn Correctional Center.
What?
In their treatment program, phase 1. And that was completed in 2010. Phase 2 was completed in 2011. Let's see. Oh, let's see. They're not different order. Phase 3, also in 2011.
While you all look, we can continue to go on.
Okay.
Ms. Carafella, if you're granted, it's going to be conditional on proof of having completed all 4 phases of sex offender treatment. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. When this is my second time appearing before the board, and I can honestly say that in 2013, having not went through all of the programs that I have, I wasn't ready. I may not have been ready to admit that then, but I am now. Because anger management was something that taught me that I had a trigger. I never knew what a trigger was. And I always got angry and took it out on people that I shouldn't have by yelling and things like that. But I learned what my triggers were. Another classes like life prep taught me critical thinking, better parenting skills, things of that nature. And then the most important thing that I'm proud of, that I never thought I would accomplish in my life, is my education. I came to prison without an education and went from GED to college degree. And anybody in my family will tell you that I never would have thought that would have happened. And currently, My wife wanted to be part of this meeting, but due to medical obligations, she wasn't able to. Her and my sons wanted to. Currently, she's in college for what I believe is called correctional support services, because something that we're passionate about and want to do, if I'm blessed with being released, we want to try to start up a reentry housing facility, because being in here, we see that a lot of people that are coming home from prison don't have anywhere to go. I've seen people be stuck in prison because they don't have a residence. And by creating that type of facility, it would give them a place to parole to. We would help them look for employment. They would have housing for conditional housing for as long as they needed it. And with her degree and the things she's looked into as far as grants and assistance, that's something that we're really passionate about, and we want to do that to help other people. And during this incarceration, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's been rough. Losing my dad, my sister, my daughter, and I didn't just lose them, our whole family lost them. And as Miss Simon could attest to with my son's heart condition, because I just recently talked with her about getting calls out to him because he was rushed to the hospital in a helicopter. Prison has taught me that the most valuable commodity is time. And when you lose that, you can't get it back. And I'm asking for the opportunity to go out there and be the father and husband that I should have been in the beginning. If you'll just grant me that opportunity, not let my words speak for me, but allow my actions to speak for me. I promise you, you won't go wrong. I can't
Okay,
do it.
thank you, Ms. Carafella. Is the board ready to vote? All right, Mr. Carafella, I'll vote first. You're a first offender. You've served almost 15 years of a 20-year sentence. You have a low risk. You've only had 3 write-ups in the last 15 years. You've taken quite a few programs, and you've done well during your incarceration. The victim is not opposed to giving you a second chance. And so my vote today would be grant upon proof of completion of all 4 phases of the sex offender treatment. I would also order, tell me about your wife's children.
TJ is 19, Dorian is 18, and Trey is 27. TJ has a serious heart condition, as I was saying.
I just want to know their ages and their genders.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to order that you have no unsupervised contact with juvenile females, and you perform 4 hours of community service work per month. That's my vote. Mr. Jim Wise.
You know, I've been sitting here all morning. I've been listening to you and some of the things. I see you've done some good programs and everything, and you got positive comments from the warden there about some things. But there's still something that I don't know. That's why I've been looking over everything. There's something deep inside me that's telling me one thing and something else. But I was just waiting on this hearing just to see. But today I'm gonna go along with Miss Bonnie today. I'm gonna be voting to grant you the same as Miss Bonnie, the same condition.
Ms. Pearl Wise.
Yes, Mr. Dennis, I was concerned as well, and you know that this charge, this is gonna follow you. That's why I'm glad you're no longer angry. You know, you will have to educate people, about, your situation. And you got your wife's support, you got family support. So I'm going to take a chance on yes, well, my vote is to grant on the same conditions set forth by the chairman. Best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, you tell me. I thought for a second that maybe Jim Wise would do something we didn't expect and deny. We'll go over the court records. Thank you, Richard. A judge found him guilty. This wasn't a jury trial. This was a bench trial. Now, is it possible that he is innocent? Well, it is incredibly rare. I think we've seen it now under 5 times in maybe almost 1,000 hearings where someone gets up and still says that they are innocent. And for someone to get up and say they're innocent, the rule is you don't do that. The rule is you have to say you're not guilty. He knows that getting up there and saying that he's innocent is only going to hurt his chances, and he's going to have to say that he's, I think, going to have to do another 7 years for his full term, his 27-year sentence, or 2027, sorry, was his full term. So no, he would have to do another, at the time of this hearing, I think 5 years. So another 5 years is what he was willing to take. Now, what's interesting is we have even seen board members say, I don't understand how anyone could plead guilty to crime that they didn't do of this nature. And here you have someone who didn't plead guilty, who went to court, who lost, and 20 years later is still saying that he's innocent. It disgusts me to want to in any way root for someone that, a cockroach that might be guilty. I don't want to be manipulated into it. I don't want to be tricked into it. I don't want to just fall for it. There could be other reasons. It could be, you know what, at this stage, it is worth it to wait a few more years to get out than to admit it. He's already so far in. And that could be the most simple reason. He has just much more to lose than the time. Plus, he got a degree. So what's the big deal? Right. Red flags that I look for. He has the perfect excuse for it, but they all do. Not one of his sons show up, and that's not perfect excuse, actually. If one of them has a heart problem, one of the other two could have shown up. His wife doesn't show up. No one shows up for his parole hearing. This is the chance that they can show up. It's a Zoom call. It doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that much effort. You can do it on your phone. We have seen people do it, right? Like, hello. I mean, even if you're at the hospital, the only thing you have is time. Unless you're going through the surgery at that moment, all you have is time. So those are red flags for me that I can't get over, and I will lean to his guilt and that something's going on that we don't know. Because how is it that no one shows up? Your own sons and your wife. I mean, at the very least, they don't want you out, right? That's what you would think. He is out, though. He must have completed those 4 because the document Richard gave me on him shows he is out. Let's go over the facts. Diaz lived with her stepmother, Scarlett, and her father, Joseph. And I think Scarlett's the one that he's married, but I'm not 100% sure. And her brother spent a lot of time with her aunt. According to Lewis, testified that Diaz stayed with her while she was in kindergarten and for the first half of first grade. Also living with Lewis's husband, Jess, and nephew defendant Diaz's mother. Nicole was the defendant's sister and Joseph's ex. Are you guys following that? I know it's a bit confusing. As such, the defendant was Diaz's uncle. Since Nicole had problems with narcotics and according to Scarlett had bipolar, Nicole was considered Louis as mother and sent Diaz to live with Louis for about 6 months. Following this, Diaz began living with Scarlett and her father, but continued to sleep at Louis on the weekends. Scarlett testified at trial that Diaz had always been unruly, but in July 2006, her behavior became even worse. Sometime during July, Diaz was at her aunt Rosemary's house swimming in her pool with her cousin Nick and her several other children. According to Scarlett's testimony, it came to her attention that Nick and Diaz had touched each other's private parts. Diaz had also confided in one of her cousins that the defendant had done more to her. Diaz and her cousin then told Scarlett about the defendant. Scarlett testified that Diaz told her that when Louis would leave the house, the defendant would take Diaz into his room and touch her private parts and make her touch his private parts. Diaz was about 7 years old and the defendant was 20. 2 days later, Scarlett took Diaz to Our Lady of Lake Hospital in Baton Rouge, where a kit was performed. There was no indication that she was sexually assaulted, but Scarlett further testified that Cheryl Diaz's paternal grandmother spoke with Diaz and made an audio tape of Diaz talking about it. So they spoke to her and recorded her talking about it. Detective Nick Venturella with the parish sheriff's office testified at trial that he arranged for Diaz to be interviewed at the Children Advocacy. Detective Venturella observed the interview and testified that Diaz stated in her interview that the defendant molested her over approximately an 8-month period. If you're going to make something up, it's hard, are you going to say 8 months versus just one time? I mean, it's pretty, if he's saying that it's all made up. The defendant touched different parts of her body and forced her to perform oral on him. On one occasion, the defendant rubbed his on her buttocks. However, she did not indicate that there was any penetration. The incident of molestation occurred 8 months, either at night while the family members were sleeping or when Diaz and the defendant were at home. According to the detective, the incidents occurred when Diaz was visiting Louis's house, but physically living with Scarlett and her father. Diaz testified at trial on direct examination that she stayed at the house for Bible school and on the weekends. While she was there, the defendant made her suck his wee-wee, which she indicated meant his. She testified that if she refused, the defendant said he would whip her. On cross-examination, Diaz testified that the incidents of molestation by the defendant occurred both at Louis's house and in a trailer owned by her mama and papa. Diaz did not know which town the trailer was in. Louis testified at trial that they lived in a trailer before living in a house. Diaz further testified in cross-examination that the period was a year and that the number of incidents were like 23 times. The defendant testified at trial and denied the allegations. The defendant testified at trial and denied the allegations. He stated he never did anything inappropriate with Diaz and he never took her into his bedroom. He stated that his relationship with Diaz was not that good. He felt Diaz was a discipline problem and that she would not listen and would holler and scream and do whatever she wanted. The defendant suggested in his testimony that Diaz made up the story about the charge because she was angry with him for calling the police on her mother. According to the defendant, during the incident, Diaz told him that since he was getting her mother in trouble, she was going to get him in trouble. The defendant also testified that he lived with Louis in a trailer in Greensburg about 2 years ago. Do you think a 7-year-old can be that manipulative? You're trying to get my mother in trouble, so I'm going to make this up about you and then follow through with it? they go through all the details. And it's pretty graphic. And the incident that they refer to about him getting his mother in trouble is that her mother chased him with a knife and he called the cops on her. I don't think anyone wanted him to go into prison, but that's the story he's referring to. Maybe she went to jail for a night. I frankly, I don't believe him. Sorry. I'm just going to go there. Like the idea that a 7-year-old would go through all of that trauma, I'm just going to believe the 7-year-old hands down. I'm sorry. He does have reasons to lie now, just a few years later. And that's scary. That's really scary. And then here's something interesting before I let you go. He did win one part of the appeal, and one part of the appeal was that the judge had given him a sentence that he would have to serve his full sentence of 25 years without the possibility, 20 years without the possibility of parole. And it turns out the legislation law had changed. His sentence was illegal. They have to allow the possibility of parole. And so they did give him that up on the appeal, which just shows it's like, can you imagine having harsh sentences, which make sense for, and I'll put this link in the description, for someone who would do this to a child, to their own flesh and blood. And then someone would say, this isn't really good. Let's pass legislation to make the sentence shouldn't be so harsh. Can you believe that someone actually wrote that legislation and then people voted on it? Can you explain that to me? How is that possible? How is that possible? How could legislation be passed to make it easier for the offenders to get out of prison early? That is madness. But that's in the appeal here. The judge gave an illegal sentence because legislation had passed. Can't make it up. In my opinion, guilty of sin and dangerous. That's just my opinion. You tell me yours. I will, even though I don't want to, put it in. I have playlists. Maybe you haven't seen it, but I do have a playlist that says wrongfully convicted ? There's really there's only 3 of them in there. I don't even know if I should have it in there, but I will. You can check out that playlist. There are a few cases in there where I do believe they're completely innocent. But with that, I'll let you go.